information, should you choose to accept it.
It's a quest. It's a quest for fun.
Well, The Rock says, why don't we just cut right to the chase?
Okay, now he wants to get together. Well, he wants to talk.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
It's showtime, folks!
What are you?
I'm...
Seasons, greetings, and salutations. Welcome to And I Quote, the weekly show where we introduce you to content creators of all shapes and sizes. Join us from any and all corners of the nerd universe. We find out more about them and find out what plans they have for the future. I am your host, Ryan of Nerd Culture, and our guest this week. This is, in fact, the last episode of And I Quote for the year 2021. And we are going to give you a very special gift in the form of our special guest tonight. And that would be independent comic book writer, artist and publisher Joe D. McPhee. Joe, welcome to the show. How are you tonight?
I'm doing very well, and thank you for having me on your season finale, to be quite honest here. I didn't realize it was a season finale for this episode.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. The greatest gifts come when you least expect them, and that's what we have for you here. So, Joe, to kick things off here, my first question to you is, how are you specifically introduced to the world of comics?
Specifically introduced?
How did you come about getting into comics? What were some of the first ones you read?
Oh, that's easy. The first book that I have ever read was, if I remember correctly, X-Men 191. That was the very first comic that I read. But the comic book that kept me reading comic books was G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero from Marvel Comics.
Oh, all right. Good stuff. Good classics there. What would you say were some of your favorite comic book writers or artists growing up? Any names stick out?
I really didn't pay too much to artists and writers until I started to make that transition to creating, to be quite honest. So when I read books, I read them mostly for the stories. And based upon that, I still have a great love for stuff from Chris Claremont. I followed the artwork of John Byrne, and then as I grew appreciation for Wonder Woman, I grew appreciation for the artwork with George Perez. A lot of the writing from Moulton from the original series of Wonder Woman for the first volume back in the 1940s.
Oh, wow.
Then I got into like the Will Eisner stuff with the Spirit. So I kind of come from a different breed. It's like most other people, it's like, oh, I'm a big Spider-Man fan, or I'm a big this fan. I grew up with some of the weirder stuff. Like I grew up loving things like Doom Patrol and Challengers of the Unknown, Fantastic Four, the oddball stuff that is not really, heroes in tights, but it goes a little bit deeper than that. Has something like the science type stuff or the science fiction. Now, the only superhero types that I really remember most belovingly, if I could say in that aspect, was the Uncanny X-Men. That's the only one that I really digged in that aspect. And then my grandmother got me into Wonder Woman when she really saw that I was into comics more so, because she kind of was like, hey, whatever happened to this character? I was like, who? And then that's with my introduction. And then when I got my introduction to Wonder Woman, she started me back on that path of going back to the Molston run and all the weirdness that was in there, and reading Wonder Woman now as opposed to where she started is night and day difference.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, definitely. All right, some good names, good throwbacks to certain characters and all that, which leads into my next question, which is what would you say are some of your favorite comic book movies or TV series, past or present?
Movies and TV series.
Yeah.
The first one that comes to my mind more so than anything else, and if it's comic book related, I'm going to call it comic book related, but it really didn't have its own comic book. And that was Thundarr the Barbarian. And people are going to say, why Thundarr the Barbarian? Guess who was partly responsible for creating Thundarr the Barbarian? Jack King Kirby. That was a Kirby creation. So that's the reason why I say I keep it in that comic book realm, because Jack Kirby was involved with the creation of Thundarr the Barbarian.
Yes.
Outside of that, the early 1960s Fantastic Four run was close enough to reading the books back then.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever remember that, and then they did all the rehashing in the 90s and whatnot, but the original Hanna-Barbera 1960 ones were pretty good. Actually, a lot of the Hanna-Barbera stuff that was quote unquote superhero related, the Birdman, the Harvey, I should call it Harvey, but it was called Birdman. It's like Birdman Galaxy Trio Hour.
Oh,
or half hour was one of them. Then you had like the Hercules and Space Ghost hour from back in the day. But moving forward, you had the G.I. Joe stuff, because again, we wouldn't have the 1980s G.I. Joe if it wasn't for Marvel Comics, because Marvel Comics used Sunbow Productions to do short little cartoon clips to advertise the comic books, and then Hasbro got wind of it, and Hasbro started a toy line, and the cartoon came about because Hasbro wanted to sell the toys in conjunction with Marvel with the comics.
Oh,
so we had the very first 5 episodes was nothing more than a plug for the G.I. Joe G.I. Joe toys.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got another 5 episode run, and then it became a full-fledged series after that.
Wow. In the words of Owen Wilson, that's a fascinating story.
Mm-hmm. It's weird. It's just weird when you really delve into the history of a lot of the cartoons from back in the day that we grew up with. G.I. Joe was the weirdest one because they did 2 5-episode runs before it actually got a season 1.
My goodness. Well, expect the unexpected. So when did you decide to become a comic book writer or artist?
I really didn't decide. I just kind of fell back into it because when I left high school, I went into the military. I was, a member of the Air Force for about 2.5 years. While I was there, I kept up with the, the art side of things, still, with my book of how to draw comics the Marvel way, and with just, sketching around and everything. Once I came out of the Air Force and started back to going to school and college, I met up with a couple of people who were still into manga, anime, and comics. Mm-hmm. They saw I had an aptitude for it. I kept drawing, and they convinced me to start doing conventions. So I started doing Artist Alley and everything, and people just kept seeing the potential of the stuff that I was creating writing-wise. I wasn't going to be an artist. I was just going to be pretty much writing because I was depending on the other people who I was grouped up with to kind of help me out, but they were taking a long time to do the work. So I said, forget it. Let me buckle down, get my artwork and stuff together. And my artwork grew to the point where I'm at right now with Agency Studios.
Oh, wow. That is, my goodness, that is truly amazing. So what would you say are some of the rewards of being a comic book writer or artist?
You have a lasting legacy that's there as long as you keep putting it out in front of other people. You have to think about it. You're telling stories, and from the caveman days, it's like a lot of stories we lose because there's nobody else there to tell them, or there's no recorded record of it. Reason being is because back in the day, the only way to pass a story along was to speak it word of mouth. Until we got written language, and now we got written language. Now it becomes a aspect of who's going to archive this stuff, as well as keep the word of mouth going. And we're still in that day and age where we got digital. It's like people have to keep up with digital archives as well as physical archives, as well as word of mouth. But once your story gets to that point where people are talking about it in that aspect, you have a lasting legacy. So that's the best gift that you could ever give to others when doing the comic book writing, comic book artistry, because you're giving them something that will last a lifetime. That's the greatest gift of all, to be quite honest.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with us. On the flip side of things, though, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges of being a comic book writer or artist?
Dealing with your own self-doubt, dealing with self. Because a lot of times you're going to have those people that's going to be naysayers nonetheless. And because they're being so negative, whether it be about the art, the writing, just the aspect that's like of what you're trying to do in general. The fact that it's not an instantaneous reward at the end of everything. It plays on your self-esteem, your self-worth, and everything to that magnitude, and you have to rise above that as a whole here, especially once you go from, oh, this is mine, I'm going to keep it to myself, and then put it in front of people. Once you put it in front of people, you have to have that thick skin to deal with it, to deal with everything that could come from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you 100%. There you go. So you've worked on a number of different comics, a number of different series. One of those series, I should say, is it's Primetime Saturday Night. So how did Primetime Saturday Night series come about? And if you were standing next to an executive in the elevator and had to give what is known as the elevator pitch, what would you say?
For one, I'd be like, hey, I'm not good at elevator pitching, but here's what Primetime Saturday Night is about. Just imagine superpower female pro wrestling in the aspect of WWE Raw or AEW format. That's pretty much what the book is as a whole here. Now, the history of Primetime Saturday Night, this book right here, is a little bit different. Primetime Saturday Night probably would have never existed if it wasn't for complaints about the AWF series. The complaint that I got for the AWF series was there was not enough female pro wrestling in the book because it was dealing more about the behind the scenes, about who they are and what they are as far as powers and what the organization was. So after listening to those people who bought the AWF book, who wanted the actual pro wrestling, I came up with the idea. It's like, why don't we just come up with a weekly television show that they actually wrestle on? And we do it just like how you turn on the television and watch a Monday Night Raw. From top to bottom, you get a match card with somewhere in between 4 to 6 matches per issue, and each issue was 50 plus pages long. And we just kept it going from that standpoint, from number 1 to the prequel issue number 0, which I have in my hand here. And that's how that came about, and that's the true history of Primetime Saturday Night. It came from people like you who really sat me down and told me, it's like, hey, we want more of this, and I gave it to you. So that's pretty much the story behind it.
Well, speaking of pro wrestling, I'm just curious, did you watch any pro wrestling growing up, and if so, who were some of your favorite superstars?
Oh, I'm pretty much an old school wrestling fan, and one of the things that caught my attention that my mother really hated more so than anything else, not only did I watch, the standards back then, which was the WWF, but some people remember WCCW with the Von Erichs, NWA Wrestling, AWA, and all those smaller organizations. I remember, watching religiously on Saturday evenings Glow from back in the day in the 1980s. When I could catch some of the Japanese wrestlers for Stardom. And then in the 90s, Glow went from Glow to WOW, Women of Wrestling, because David McLean tried to revamp Glow, and that was the end result. I remember watching those episodes as they go along. And I know that they're still on YouTube here, and I think he's trying to revamp it again, or at least they're trying to restart it, WOW again. So yeah, I have, an extensive love for the pro wrestling aspect here. As far as people who I follow, I used to follow religiously, like people like Sergeant Slaughter from the AWA days. The same thing with Junkyard Dog, because Junkyard Dog was one of the few people who I have ever watched on television that could take multiple chair shots and it would not phase them. Would not phase them. Watching people like George the Animal Steel, back in the day. Seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin before he was Stone Cold Steve Austin, where he was the protege of $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase as the ringmaster.
That's right.
People don't remember that. Remembering back in the NWA days when the Undertaker first premiered, and he did not premiere as the Undertaker. I forgot what his name was, but he was like some no name in NWA wrestling before Vince picked him up as the Undertaker.
I believe he was referred to as Mean Mark Callis, and he was part of the Skyscrapers with Sid Justice, and I believe Teddy Long was their manager at one point.
No. What I'm talking about was before then.
Oh, that was before that. Okay, I'm sorry.
Before then, yes,
Okay.
that's before the Skyscrapers. Because again, I remember he made his debut
Sure.
after the original Rock and Roll Express turned on Jim Cornette.
Oh, okay. All right, there you go. See, all right, I got a little bit of my information just a little bit mixed up because I have watched documentaries about certain wrestlers or certain eras of pro wrestling. I haven't watched everything, and clearly I don't know everything because I just got some of the info about Undertaker wrong. But I do remember hearing it was Mean Mark Callis.
He was Mean Mark Callis, but the thing about it is
that was later. Yeah,
it was later. It wasn't too much later, but it was later. Right. I remember he made his debut, and it's like he was like the up and coming star that did not have a name. And I remember how Jim Cornette introduced him in NWA wrestling.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Man, fascinating. Well, that's cool that you came up with the series because based upon some of your love from the the pro wrestling days, certain superstars and all that. Do you still keep up with pro wrestling today, or
yes, to a certain degree here? And to be quite honest with you, I'm still keeping my fingers crossed about one thing happening. One of the projects that I was a part of is that I actually was a part of an unofficial AEW comic book that we produced here. It was myself. I forgot the artist's name off the top of my head, and Todd Black, who was the actual writer, was more of the editor for that book. We came up with the AEW comic, and we gave it over to the organization as our bid to say, hey, let us do your comic, because Todd Black had several series up under his belt. I had several comic book series up under my belt, and the artist that he had did a lot of stuff for Todd and other major companies. And we was like, yeah, we could put this together and give you a great product. But like I said, keeping my fingers crossed. We were still waiting to hear back. It's a lot of legal stuff that goes into it.
Sure.
And like I said, it's other people also bidding for stuff to that magnitude too, because there's other books. Like, for example, Todd is actually writing and producing a book for Thunder Rosa as of right now.
Oh, good Lord.
So he has several issues of the Thunder Rosa book already out.
Thunder Rosa, that's a superstar for you. My gosh. A lot of energy from that superstar.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question.
It could happen. It could happen, but the thing about it is, like, it's a wait and see, and the stars have to line up legally so to be like a yay or a nay.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, with the Tony Schiavone book coming out, you have the creators of that. You have the creators of that in the ear of the mucky mucks at AEW talking about, hey, we could do more comics for you too.
Sure.
So it's multiple things that could happen. Even if they did like an anthology type deal where they just like, you know what, everybody work together, it's still an inroad in nonetheless. So it's like I said, it's just one of these things where you have to sit back, keep your fingers crossed, see what happens.
Well, on behalf of myself and everyone here at Neuroculture, we do wish you and the creative teams over there the best of luck. I hope you guys get it, because my gosh, that would be so cool. And I remember, granted, I'm going to show just a little bit of my age here. Grew up during the latter part of the Monday Night Wars between the WWF at the time and WCW. So Tony Schiavone, I always remember watching him doing the commentating during the Monday Night Wars, and he did a great job. And to see him come back all these years later doing it with AEW, and then you get the Stinger coming back. You got Christian Cage, other guys coming in. I'm like, my goodness gracious, this is just like, I got excited. It was like being a kid again to a certain degree. So
the actual pro wrestling aspect is coming back. It's no longer about the gimmick and pageantry. It's about the story, the in-ring story. It haven't got back to where New Japan and Stardom is at.
Right.
But we're getting back to what we used to have back in like the early 80s wrestling, where we cared about who was a face and who was a heel, and those stories that are being told.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. Well, quick sidebar here, if you don't mind me asking, who would you say is your favorite wrestler now? And then the second part of that question is, what's your favorite wrestling match of all time that you love so much that you can just go back to and watch it over and over again? It's still great.
Well, favorite wrestler now.
Yeah, in the present moment. Yeah.
In the present moment, I really would have to say is the reemergence of CM Punk. And the reason I have to say the reemergence of CM Punk is because everything that he said in that pipe bomb message that he did in WWE.
Oh, on Monday Night Raw,
to fruition when he came back in AEW.
Mm-hmm.
Is he the same wrestler like he was back then? No. But the groundwork is there for AEW to really catapult that much higher, because now you got people who understand the aspect of pro wrestling when it comes to in-ring performance, as opposed to maintaining a gimmick and maintaining kayfabe. The end product is, did you put on a great show and are people appreciative of it, as opposed to, hey, I'm this personality, I got to be this personality 24/7.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Are you digging what they're doing between the cutting of the promos between CM Punk and MJF right now?
I feel that MJF is not ready, to be quite honest.
Not ready. Okay.
And the reason I say not ready, in-ring wise, he's not ready.
Okay.
He's almost getting there, cutting promo wise.
Right.
But as far as performing in the ring, he's not there. He got the ability. He has the talent. He's just not there. Will it take somebody like CM Punk to get him over? Yes. But the thing is, if Punk do put him over, is MJF ready for everything else that follows? Which I don't think he is.
Ooh. Yeah. I'm liking
now,
this.
The person who I thought was ready, and I don't understand why they're holding him back, was Darby. When he did that match with Darby, I was like, this could be a feud that could put Darby on the map and, elevate that level of generational wrestling from Sting's point of view.
Oh, man, yeah. And to see Sting come back and he's in the ring with Darby doing tag matches and he's taking all these bumps at his age. It's like, dang, no wonder they keep calling him the icon in the franchise. And yes, I'm willing to admit this. I do have a Sting AEW shirt in my possession.
And that's a good thing. But here's another bit of wrestling history.
Sure.
Most people don't know who his original tag team partner was back in the day either. Do you remember who Sting's original tag team partner was?
I believe they were both at the time. They were still kind of getting up there and being bodybuilders. But Jim Hellwig, aka the Ultimate Warrior, I believe was his original tag team partner, and they jumped into the business together at that point. Yeah, and unfortunately, Ultimate Warrior is no longer with us. So R.I.P. to the Warrior, and thoughts and prayers go out to the family and the friends of that, because that was a devastating thing too. Because he just came back after settling his differences with the company. He got into the Hall of Fame, goes on a Monday Night Raw the night after WrestleMania, cuts this Warrior type promo, and then a few days later, lights out. So, dang, it's tragic.
It's tragic, and
that is what it is.
And to think, it's just like, think if they would have stayed together as a tag team instead of Vince coming in and breaking them up. And even to this day, it kind of makes you wonder why did Vince choose Warrior over Sting outside of just the outward physique?
Right. Because
Sting had the more staying power as far as being talent wise.
Sure. I mean, look what he did. He had the blonde hair, flat top haircut. Then he did the whole Crow Sting. Then he did Wolfpack Sting, which, by the way, I am NWO for life, Wolfpack style, brother.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, he did that, and then he took time off, and then he came back as Crow Sting, and then he rode that wave until the closing of the company in 2001. And then you see his big. I mean, granted, he did a run in WWE that kind of went here and there. I don't know the extent of it because I didn't watch it at the time. I stopped watching wrestling a long time ago, so I didn't really catch up with everything that went down. But then he comes back in AEW, and I'm like, it's Tony Schiavone announcing it's Sting. Like I'm like, this is WCW Monday Nitro all over again, and I'm loving it. So it just brings back the childhood memories of me watching Monday Nitro in the late 90s. So, and he's doing well for himself. At his age, the guy can still take bumps.
I mean, it's amazing. And to think with the lackluster match that he had with Triple H, that should have been like one for the history books. Triple H versus Sting. Two franchise wrestlers going at it with one another.
On the grandest stage of them all.
This is the thing, because this made me wonder about WWF, because again, during that time, Sting was going against a lot of people in the Attitude Era. Why wasn't it Rock? Why wasn't it Mankind? Why wasn't it Steve Austin? It had to be Triple H. I was like, why? Because think about it. Everybody would have watched Sting versus Rock.
Oh my, yeah.
Even at that day and age when he came over, it's an older Sting. Everybody would have tuned in if it was like one more match, Sting versus Rock. Even better, Sting versus Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh man, the Stinger of the franchise versus the toughest SOB in the company. I mean, that's insane.
And would have brought back a lot of memories from the old school of WCW when Steve Austin was there.
Oh, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
The opportunity, but at that time, Triple H was the franchise guy. I just like, this could be interesting if they play it right, and it fell apart.
Unfortunately, from what I was hearing in some of the footage that I did see, it just fizzled. So that's the unfortunate side effect of that ordeal. But anyway, my goodness gracious, we're talking about wrestling. We could go all night with this thing, but we don't have that kind of time. But still, I digress. But great points. Thank you for sharing that with us. Always good to dive back into the Wayback Machine of pro wrestling, whether you grew up during the latter part of the Monday Night Wars or you grew up long before that even happened in the 80s. There's nothing wrong. All different eras, all different kinds of superstars at the time. So many different promotions going at it head to head, battling for contract over here and a contract there, what have you. We'll leave that we'll leave it as it lies. But the next thing I do want to bring up here, another series that you worked on, Amazonia. How did Amazonia come about, and what would be potentially the elevator pitch?
The elevator pitch for this one, I've been still working on it, but the long and short end of the elevator pitch is, think about it as a slice of life crime drama where a superhero is finally coming back to our hometown after being after almost being convicted of murder in her high school days. When she comes back, she finds out that this corporate madman has his fingers in everything in the town here, and now there's somebody after him. So now she has to figure out who's truly telling the truth and what is really going on behind the scenes in Angel Falls, which is our hometown.
Ooh, crime story, crime thriller. People trying to figure out what exactly went down and finding the answers, solving certain mysteries are attempted to be solved here. That's a heck. I gotta say this. That's a heck of an elevator pitch, but behind the scenes, how did Amazonia come about?
It was my kind of attempt to create something that was Wonder Woman-like, but not Wonder Woman. And the reason being is that when we think of Amazons, we tend to think too much Greek culture. And one of the two stories that always stuck out in my mind, more so dealing with Amazons that holds true today, it was Stan Lee's Just Imagine Wonder Woman, where he took it from the Aztec standpoint.
Sure.
And when Amazons attacked, which DC introduced that there was Amazons all over the world. There was Amazons from Brazil, from Africa, from all these other remote locations, and they had their own culture about it, but they were all brought together up under one fold.
Okay. All right. Fascinating stuff. I'm liking this. Very intriguing stuff. Look forward to sitting down and reading both of these series respectively, because those are some great elevator pitches.
I mean, that one has been a decade in the making here. We already 6 issue in, 7th issue is going to be hopefully done. Hopefully, once I get what my color is, it gets done by the end of this year. We should be able to have it out and ready by February.
February. Just in time for Valentine's Day. There you go. So if anyone's looking for some gifts for February and otherwise, we have some suggestions here for you. There you have it. Now, have there been any special memories for you at being at conventions, whether you're there as an attendee or you're there as a vendor?
Oh yeah, several couple of them comes to mind, to be quite honest. Like, for example, the first time I gifted the first 3 issues of Amazonia to Pam Grier is one.
Oh my.
And this was shortly after she did the role of Amanda Waller for Smallville.
Yes, my favorite comic book TV series. There you go.
So shortly after that, it was Wizard World Chicago. She happened to be there and doing a signing, and it's like I couldn't like talk to her, because she was never there. Oh. So I ended up going to her booth, left the books there, left a note there. Then I came back and I saw that her agent was there. I told the agent, like, hey, I left a couple of books here. Hopefully she enjoys them, this, that, and the other. It's like, no, come on. It's like, and then I talked to her. I actually got to meet her and talk to her for about 5 minutes.
That must have been too sweet. That must have been sweet, man.
Exactly. I mean, there's a few celebrities that I met. It's like I actually got to talk to Mick Foley at a Wizard World Chicago after giving him a couple of copies of AWF.
Ooh, nice. Did he tell you to have a nice day after you saw it?
There was so many stories that he told. I was just enjoying the wrestling stories. It's like I didn't care about the iconic, catchphrases and everything. I was like, wow, these are great behind the scenes wrestling stories. It's like I'm appreciative of that more so than hearing him say, "Have a nice day."
Oh, that's cool stuff. Man, we're going from Pam Grier to Mankind. Any other few memories that stand out to you?
Not off the top of my head, because like a lot of it is like dealing with comic book people.
Oh, that's fair.
Like, for example, the first time that I actually met Dan Slott was at Wizard World Chicago.
The Windy City.
Windy City, yep. It was during a artist and writers mixer. Mm-hmm. And, you have the pros and you have like the up and coming people like myself. And I was like, still wet behind the ears. This was, less than a year after Amazonia 1 drops and everything. And we were just talking. And at the time, the whole thing about who is the Red Hulk was still going about in the comic book world. If you were following Incredible Hulk at that time. And everybody's like, oh yeah, it could be this, it could be that, this, that, the other. It's like, Dan's like, yeah, whatever. It's like, no, it can't be any of those. It's like, well, what do you mean? It's like, I have my theory, but my theory probably going to be disproven by you. It's like, well, let me hear it. So I told him, it's like, the Red Hulk is Thunderbolt Ross. And then it's like, you can see it in his face. It's like, oh crap. I was right. That's like, he's like, well, how do you know about it? It's like, you just have to pay attention to what he says and how he says it. Ooh. There's certain words that only Thunderbolt Ross uses in any time he talks about certain people. And when he talked about the Hulk, he used the word milksop. Milksop always referred back to Bruce Banner. Always in comic book history.
Right.
Nobody else would use that other than General Thunderbolt Ross. And he just didn't say nothing after that. And I stopped talking about it. And everybody else kept guessing. I'm like, so after that whole conversation, I found him the next day, gave him a couple of copies of my books and everything. Following year at C2E2, he was there. I gave him a couple more of my books. So the following year after that, I was like, hey, I guess you probably don't remember reading this, that, and the other. Here's the 3rd issue of the series, of the book. It's like, yeah, I remember you. You're the guy that had the cop book and this. And I was like, you read it. It was pretty decent. Like, wow.
There you go. Yeah, getting some feedback, getting some praise from some other people within the industry out there.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, that was the series. Amazonia was almost a series that I gave up on.
Wow, I'm glad but I am glad that you stuck with it.
I stuck with it because other people saw value up in it. And when I say other people, it's like it wasn't just only Dan Slott.
Sure.
Comixology wanted that series. And the only thing I had to do was just redraw the first issue.
Okay. All right. Wow, that's
they
amazing.
saw value up in that series. And
Sure.
I was about to give up on it because nobody was buying it. Nobody was like, they would look at it and like, nah, that's not for me. That's not for me. And then after they read it, it was like, what's the next issue? You know? I just don't know. But I almost gave up on it until I met with Comixology, and Comixology said, hey, you don't understand. You have fans of this series in our company already. Keep going. So I kept going from that point forward, you know.
That's
distributors giving me a ringing endorsement to keep going. It's like, might as well.
Yep. There you go. And we congratulate you on the success of that series, as well as the other ones you have going on. Now, I may not have it over here on the side of the studio, but I do have this. Rising Tide Raises All Ships.
Exactly.
So we know a gentleman by the name of Brian K. Morris, who you may have heard of. We mentioned him quite a few times on this very program known as And I Quote. I'm just curious, how did you come to meet Brian K. Morris, and how did you end up becoming part of the Rising Tide family?
Okay, short story on how I met him.
Sure.
I did not meet Brian K. Morris directly. I met him through a friend of a friend. Remember the person I mentioned about the AEW book, Todd Black?
Yes.
He knew Brian K. Morris. And Brian happened to come in one of these days while he was doing a broadcast. And I was there, and, you know, Ty and I was talking, you know, over his broadcast and everything. And then Brian came in. And then from that point forward, it's like Brian and I got to know one another. So shortly after that, you know, after talking to him, I was like, I caught Brian on one of his broadcasts, you know, interacted with him. I was like, okay, you're kind of a cool guy, this, that, and the other. And then he learned that I also did my own broadcast from time to time. So one day he has happened to sneak in to watch my show. He was like, you got something there. But I never said anything about it. And it's like, I'm up here. It's like, I'm trying to get it to grow, you know, my channel and stuff to grow. I've been pretty much concentrating on just my channel will grow based upon my mailing list. And because I'm pretty much doing this for people on my mailing list to know what I'm doing, you know, giving them content to look forward to, whether it be reviews of other people's comics, you know, editing other people's comments, just talking about the industry as a whole, whether it be business side or just geek culture side. And then one, you know, I'm up here, it's like I got to the point where it's like, you know what, I'm fed up just trying to do this by myself. So I tried to reach out to other people who had actual broadcasting networks. And none of them really value what I was putting out there on the table. Until Brian says, like, it was a long time coming. I've been meaning to ask you about that question about would you want to be a part of the Rising Tide Network. I was like, shoot, I'm looking forward to somebody asking me to be a part of their network. It's like, you know, it's kind of lonely being out here by yourself. And one thing led to another, and, you know, from the Desert Small Press Publisher came over to Rising Tide, and now you see me more often there with my show, Comic Book Spectrum, and wherever else they need me at.
There you go, and congratulations on all that. Yeah, Comic Book Spectrum, you can catch that on Thursday nights, I believe, at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Rising Tide Publications Facebook page, YouTube channel, all that stuff. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to that channel, because there's some great people over there. You're going to like the way you look after watching those videos. I guarantee it. So good stuff, and congrats on that. We wish you the best of luck from the desk of a small press publisher, I should say, with the YouTube channel and everything that you're doing over there. Wish you the best of luck. So we do have a fun series of questions for you. Now, this episode of And I Quote and every episode of And I Quote is brought to you by Poddex. Now, Poddex are the hottest new tool for podcasters looking to have more meaningful conversations or gamify their podcasts. You simply shuffle them up, you ask a question, you let the content roll. You can get yours today at poddex.com, and make sure you use that promo code NERDCULTURE for 10% off your order. You're not going to want to miss that opportunity. All right, Joe, first one's up. What is something you love that is vintage?
That is vintage?
Could be anything. Could be a piece of technology. Could be, you know, a comic book from before. Could be anything. Something you love that is vintage. What do you think?
Like I said, it depends on what you consider vintage. Because if I could say like my issue of Wonder Woman number 9 from 1945, that could be vintage to some people and not vintage to other. So that's why I say vintage. That would be one. I'm trying to think what else could I say. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. That is most of my Molten run for Wonder Woman. So like issue number 9, issue 23, 28, and then maybe Uncanny X-Men number 1 for 1963, which I got CGC certified at like a 1.5, but at least I have one.
Okay, all right. What I'm trying to say, what's the right terminology here? The condition of it may not be a 10,
right?
But at least you have it. It's graded, right? And it's in a slab.
I have it. It's graded, and it's not going to get any worse.
Do you have 1.5? I sure hope not. Yeah. No, that's fine. It's all good. And congrats on getting that, graded and slabbed. Because one of the things I hope to do one day is to get something, whether it be graded or something that's already graded, that's already in a slab. I hope to get one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's not hard, but it's just more expensive for some reason. Because again, collectors want to deal with quote unquote grading and condition, as opposed to true archival. Because to me, that's the only reason why you get something slab is really for archival purposes.
Yeah, there's that too. So we'll see how my journey goes on getting a slab. Who knows, right? Mm-hmm. But the next question I have for you, what would you do with an extra hour in the day?
If I had an extra hour in a day, I probably would spend it either trying to enjoy life or actually doing some actual work art-wise. Most likely the former than the latter. Because to me, it's like people miss out on too much stuff in life because we worry about other people's stuff and work, and there's not enough time for enjoying the simple stuff. Just going outside and just walking around, enjoying the nature, enjoying the sights and sounds and other cultures and stuff to that magnitude. So if I had one extra hour a day, I probably would do something that was fun.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that. What gives you butterflies in your stomach?
Nostalgia. Anything that's nostalgia like that I hold near and dear. Kind of like how I found the Space Pirate Captain Harlock number 1 while I was at the comic book store the other day, and then do the review of it because it brought that nostalgia feeling of watching the comic books from when I was a kid. That got me butterflies in the stomach,
All right. Nothing wrong with that. Which actor or actress would you want to play you in a movie of your life? So which actor would play you in a movie about your life?
I've been asked that question so many different times, and every time it's like I have to say I really don't know. Only because I don't see one particular actor being me. I kind of like an average type of guy. So I'm up here like, if I had to go with based upon my features and everything here, it would be awfully hard to pick. But if I just go in general, it's like anybody who's popular at the time could play me. I'm just that much of an average guy, to be quite honest here. I mean, Morgan Freeman would be too old. Denzel Washington would be too old. Chadwick Boseman is already dead. So,
sadly,
whoever is popular at the time. Fine with me.
All right. Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens if that biopic does come to be made. We don't know yet. It's too soon to tell. But
exactly.
On to the next one. If you were a captain of a ship, what would you call it?
Now, what type of ship are we talking about? Aircraft, ship that floats in the water, or a spacecraft?
I will say it's dealer's choice. It could be any ship that you want. If you were captain of any kind of ship, whether it's real or otherwise, what would you want to call it?
Well, if it was a spaceship, I will call it the Endeavor. Now, if it was an aircraft, and when I say aircraft, I'm talking about, like a normal jet plane or something of that magnitude, it would be called the Blackjack. Now, ships I just don't do. Just regular floating vessels I really don't do, so I wouldn't be a captain there.
No ships for you. No, that's all. No, listen, that's all good. That's all good. No problems with that whatsoever. But here's kind of a follow-up question to that. If you were the captain of a ship in the Star Wars or Star Trek universe, what kind of ship would you want to captain, and what would you call that ship?
You did say Star Trek, right?
Yes, Star Trek or Star Wars.
It gotta be a Galaxy class starship. It would have to be a war class ship because I want other shuttles and aircraft on it. Because I picture myself being more of a militant type captain or admiral than anything else. So I'm gonna have to be on a Galaxy class ship, not like an Enterprise per se, because depending on which Enterprise that you look at, most of the Enterprise were pretty much diplomatic. They were not really warlike, war built for war. I'm just trying to think.
That's okay.
It's like Sulu's ship was not war either. It was more. It was Galaxy class, but it was not meant for war. It was again diplomatic.
Sure.
The ship that Beverly Crusher had was medical.
Mm-hmm.
The Voyager was science. Was a science vessel, so it had a little bit of both. It really didn't have like pure military. I'm trying to think what was the ship that Riker had. It would be something like that.
Oh, okay.
Can remember when Riker became a captain, he had his own ship. That would be the type of Galaxy class ship that I would have in Star Trek lore.
Nice. Hey, he directed Star Trek First Contact, my favorite Star Trek movie of all time. Jonathan Frakes is who we were referring to, aka Riker, and he also was the voice of Xanatos in Gargoyles.
Exactly.
He goes from playing a commander of William Riker as a good guy on one show, and then he becomes the worst person you can ever see within an animated series of that time anyway on Gargoyles, and he plays evil really well.
So we think.
Well,
because again, when you got the later seasons of Gargoyles, it's like, was Xanatos really as evil as we thought, or was he kind of predicting something else that was going to happen down the line?
I guess you'd have to go back and look at his motivations through each season or each series of episodes. I can't. It's been a while since I've watched the series. It's been a long time. I'm going to be perfectly honest.
Season 1 Xanatos, he was not that great of a guy. He was loco.
He was a bit, he was a bit crazy, maybe doing some stuff wrong. But hey, that's that's the villain. Every villain believes they are the hero of their own story. So. That's what I've heard. But good calls on what you would do as far as being a captain of a particular kind of ship, or if you're going to call it something, good names on that. With that being said, we want to take this opportunity to thank Jody McPhee from the desk of a small press publisher for being our guest on the season finale of And I Quote, at least for 2021. Fear not. For you who are watching this, new episodes will return on Saturday, January the 8th of 2022 for And I Quote. But in the meantime, we have a lot of great things coming your way. But before I get into that, once again, I want to thank you, Jody McPhee, for being our guest on the season finale. Where can the person who's watching this find you online and everything you have coming up?
Well, you can find me online on Facebook, Instagram, and DeviantArt. And you can also catch me every Saturday on From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher, right here on YouTube. Just look it up on the Rise of Tide Network page on Facebook. It's right there. It's like the links to everything is right there. As far as, there was one question that I never didn't answer, and I want to make certain that I'm a completist.
Oh, sure.
That one question that you asked was, what was my favorite wrestling match of all time?
Yes.
It's a combination of the broadcast during the Monday Night Wars where WCW ruins the ending of Monday Night Raw where Mick Foley wins the title. And then you flip over and you watch that match, and how Mick Foley won that match was like the best thing ever. And that had to be like my favorite wrestling moment of all time.
Okay. All right. Yep. I know what you're referring to. I've seen documentaries. I've seen the clips of it when they go back to with the two different broadcasts going on at that point in time. So there you go. Well, you're a completist, so there you go. Now you've completed it, but there you go. Thank you for sharing that with us, and all the links to where you can find Jody McPhee, everything he has coming up, are located within the description of this video. So make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. But as far as we are concerned here at Nerd Culture, you can follow us on all forms of social media simply at It's Nerd Culture. New videos are being posted on our YouTube channel each and every week, and we have some special events that we want to share with you. One of the things that's coming up in January of 2022, it's called the Multiverse Fundraiser. It is going to be a virtual convention. It's free to attend from the comfort of your own home. It's going to be on the back of the Cereal Box Podcast Network, as well as the social media pages of the Multiverse Fundraiser. All the proceeds that are raised are going to go to the Valerie Perrine Project. She played the character of Miss Tessmacher during the Christopher Reeve Superman films. She's going through a lot of health battles right now, so all the money that is raised during the raffles and special things that we're going to be doing that weekend, they are going to go to her. We're going to help her out as best we can. We got special guests all weekend. You got Noah Wiley, for Pete's sake, from ER, Falling Skies, The Librarians. Is there anything this young man hasn't done? I don't think so. You got Sarah Douglas, who played the legendary character Ursa in Superman 2, starring the late, great Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder, I might add. Then you also got Camille Mitchell. Speaking of Smallville, she played the sheriff at one point on Smallville. And Camille Mitchell is going to be joining us, as well as Anthony Rapp. Speaking of Star Trek, Anthony Rapp is going to be in the house. He was also in a film from the 80s with Elizabeth Shue called Adventures in Babysitting, for Pete's sake. That is a classic, and if you haven't seen that, treat yourself, because it's going to be a lot of fun. It's January 21st to the 23rd of next year. A lot of great things coming your way with that. Also, we have this coming up for you. The Book of Boba Fett drops on December the 29th. But on December the 30th, on that Thursday night, we're going to be doing a weekly recap review show for the Book of Boba Fett. We're calling it Boba's Weekly Bounty, presented by yours truly here at Nerd Culture. I'm going to be hosting it. The rest of the Nerd Culture team is going to be involved. We're also going to have some special guests that are going to be joining us from week to week. Who are those special people? You got to tune in to find out. So get ready, because we got a lot of great things coming your way. And once again, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for watching this, for liking, commenting, sharing, doing all that stuff. We cannot do this without you. This content is made possible by viewers like you. Not to get a little nostalgic on you, but there you go. Once again, my name is Ryan of Nerd Culture. In the meantime, stay healthy, stay strong, stay safe. Happy holidays to you. May the force be with you always. And once again, Jody McPhee, thank you so much for being with us. Oh, and we have one more special treat for you. Take a look at this. May the force be with you.
Paul's anger fuels the fight more and more. His fighting style becomes more passionate and more violent as he now begins to gain the offensive. He goes for the kill, but only wounds Tarek, cutting his leg before Tarek can fully react to the pain. Zaval kicks him down the hill, and he falls to the bottom, landing in a field of tall grass.
It's such a fun universe that you can play around with in so many different ways. It has just infinite potential that anyone can work with. It's just a wonderful franchise in that way.
It was so much fun to actually get some sort of opportunity to play within this world that I've loved since I was a kid.
I think the best thing about playing the villain was I always kind of see myself as the protagonist versus the antagonist. So it was cool to be on the other side of that spectrum.
This is my first opportunity to actually be able to play as the protagonist of a Star Wars story.
Coming to set every day and watching people fight with lightsabers or talk about the Force, it's almost surreal in a way. I won't lie to you, there were moments where me and Travis would look at each other wondering, are we actually going to finish this?
I knew I was in, but I was like, who the hell is going to be opposite that? And it was just, I'm just glad that I had Sean, because Sean's the only one crazy enough to yeah, I'll swing some lightsabers with you.
That was so much fun to film those lightsaber duels.
When we sat down and watched the first cut, I thought to myself, was oh man, we failed.
It was definitely stressful at times. There were times when I wasn't quite sure if something would be able to be pulled off.
We didn't really have an actual budget. We were all just bringing stuff from home, or we were sourcing things outside of each other, and I'm really proud of everybody's effort, how it came together to make such an awesome film at the end.
It's so much fun to put films like this together. I think it's just really exciting.
I didn't know how this was going to turn out when we started. And watching it back, everyone really made it come together, and it looks very good. It looks real. It looks believable.